Gerry Kelly and I have just had our meeting with the British Secretary of State Theresa Villiers and some of her officials. I'm very conscious of the atmosphere that's around at the moment. I'm also very conscious that we have been, over the course of the last 20 years, involved in continually trying to push the peace process forward and to deal with some very difficult issues within that process. And there are difficult issues for everybody and for all the parties within that process. But one issue that really had to be dealt with was the issue of people who were described as on the run. And I have to say there's an awful lot of misinformation about, peddled by some politicians and indeed by some elements within the media in relation to the status of these people. Words have been used like immunity, like amnesty, like get out of jail card. But in fact, nothing could be further from the truth. Here we had a situation where a sizable group of people were not sure about their status in relation to the law. Their names were put forward and it was decided that no charges could be proceeded with against these people. I think it was very interesting yesterday that in the British House of Commons, the British Attorney General, Dominic Grieve, repeatedly said that the process to deal with these people was an entirely lawful process. And throughout his contribution to the questions that he was asked, he made that absolutely crystal clear. Now, where did this come from? This came from an agreement with two governments, the British government and the Irish government, that the issue of on the runs had to be dealt with. And a process was put in place to deal with that. And Gerry Kelly played a major role in that from our perspective. Now, I think it's also becoming increasingly clear to people that we weren't the only people who knew about this, that the information about this was actually within the political arena and to a certain extent within the public domain. Now, a very important point about this issue is that those names that were put forward, those people were told no charges could be proceeded with or brought against them. There were also another smaller number of names that people were told that charges would be proceeded with if they returned to the north. So I think that information blows out of the water this argument of amnesty or immunity or get out of jail card. And indeed one of our colleagues who has played a very prominent role in this peace process over many, many years in dealing with the US government and the US State Department, Rita O'Hare, is actually in that category. So Rita didn't get a get out of jail card. Rita is still, in literal terms, one of those described as on the runs. So I think that disproves the argument that people are making. The other very important point is the fact that it has been shown, particularly over the last 24 hours, that this is a matter that has been discussed on a number of occasions at the policing board. So all the political parties knew it, and I think that the testimony or the contribution to the policing board meeting of 2010 from Assistant Chief Constable Drew Harris is very revealing in terms of the amount of knowledge that people knew. Now, I listened to, for example, Alec Atwood say last night on the Nolan show that he knew nothing about this. Alec was actually at that meeting where Drew Harris outlined the fact that there was a scheme. Yes, we all accept that there was no mention of a letter, but I actually think that that's a superfluous point. Everybody at that meeting knew that there was a scheme and that over a period of years that scheme was being proceeded with. One of Alec's favourite words is interrogate. I hear him all the time asking to interrogate this and to interrogate that. Well, why didn't he interrogate? what he was told by Assistant Chief Constable Drew Harris? Why didn't the rest of them, representing all of the other parties, interrogate it? But of course I don't rely on that alone. I rely on the Eames Bradley report itself. I rely on Dennis Bradley, someone who has enormous credibility within the community. And I rely on the contribution to this debate in Jonathan Powell's book, where he makes it absolutely crystal clear that the DUP were aware that there was a process in place to deal with this situation. So here we find ourselves now where it has been contended that there might be the resignation of the First Minister. Well, I have to ask the question, what would that achieve? It would lead to an election, and Sinn Féin's not afraid of elections. We have no difficulty whatsoever in facing into an election. But the question has to be asked, what would that achieve? In my view, absolutely nothing, because on the other side of that election, those of us who have political responsibilities would be charged with the responsibility of taking forward the general thrust of the Haas proposals, because those proposals are not going to go away. The past and how we move forward in the future, how we deal with the past, how we deal with parades, how we deal with flags, symbols and emblems are crucially important issues. And those issues will remain on the other side of an election. So I think that's the big responsibility at this time, I think, is for cool heads. It's for steady leadership. It's for responsible leadership. It's for recognising that we are in the lead politically, that we have to work together, work through these issues, stop the grandstanding, deal with the difficulties that are presented. And we've had a discussion with Theresa Villiers about the sense of how they are looking at this situation at this point in time, and how we are essentially going to move forward. So as always, as problem solvers, we in Sinn Féin are moving forward as positively and as constructively as we possibly can be, given steady, responsible leadership, and asking all of the other parties to make their particular contribution to ensuring that we move forward in a way that sees us, whatever about this particular difficulty that we're facing, face up to how we deal with those issues consistent with the general thrust of the Haas proposals.